has already started. But the Honorable Elijah Muhammad said the battle will be in the sky. It just don't mean airplanes. See, the battle has already begun. The battle is for the mind. Satan battling for your mind. God battling for your mind.
Let me tell you something. Not only will they persecute you, they'll lie on you. They'll fabricate lies. They'll imprison you and create cases around you. The same way they tried to defame the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and then they tried to defame Malcolm X, and then they even tried to defame Dr. Martin Luther King by some secretary. That's what they'll do. They'll imprison you, and then they'll create lies to turn your own people against you. They'll persecute you after righteous name's sake. The same way I'm talking to you, they're going to come after me eventually. Believe it. They're going to say, that man is too dangerous. I don't like him. Let's make some lies up on him. Let's turn his people against him. Let's imprison him. And if we can, let's kill him because his people won't help him anyway. And they'll try it. And I'll be at the mercy of the devil because people say, well, won't Allah step in and help you? And I say, did he step in and help John the Baptist? And the answer would be no. He will not intervene at that point. You understand?
The government of America knows that whenever a people have been oppressed and suppressed and denied basic rights, freedom, justice, and equality, which are the essentials of life, they know that the longer we are deprived, the greater will be the leader that comes to answer that deprivation. So they were watching to see who that leader was. They were looking for the Messiah, just like Pharaoh was looking for the birth of a deliverer, and just like Herod was looking for the Messiah. They heard Malachi York. They heard a brilliant black brother. They saw him building a small nation here in Georgia. Is he the Messiah? Trumped up charges. Break up his movement. Put brother in jail. Watch for the leader who is gaining strength, popularity, power, influence. Then if you can bring him into court, fine. If you can't find a way to trump up charges, find a way to kill him. Find a way to kill him.
Put Dr. Ben next to Malachi. You can't put the Honorable Elijah Muhammad next to Malachi. You really can't put none of them next to him. However, he still paid love to them. He still paid homage to them. And everybody acts like he does not exist. But that's the master teacher in the belly of the beast. But y'all got whole movements to get everybody else free. Y'all done brought attention to everybody else. If you can abandon the master teacher, the one who cared about us, you deserve what's coming to you. Go toe to toe with me. I'm nowhere near on Malachi York level. They will never say, you know what, I'm not actually nowhere near that man level. They'll be like, yo, you know, so yeah, Malachi is cool. He's cool. What? How is he cool? When before him, all of y'all niggas who saying Grand Rising, y'all was saying good morning, just like everybody else. Don't act like y'all came up with this shit. Before him, all y'all niggas was saying understand, because that's all you had, an understanding of shit. Didn't none of y'all translate the books? Didn't none of y'all reintroduce a dead language of ancient Kemet? None of y'all did these things. So then how is he cool? How is he just somebody? When I'm humble, I might list other people with him. When I'm humble, I don't gotta be humble. Being humble don't mean you telling the truth about how this shit really rock either. It just means you considering other motherfuckers' feelings. You can't put nobody next to Malachi York. Lie and say you can't.
Wabat, Moisar, Wabat. We are back. We are back with more Wu-Sabat. We are back We are back with more Wu-Sabat. Wabat, Wabat, Wabat. We are back with more Wu-Sabat. Okay. All right. This is a continuation from the last discussion we had on the cultural principles of Wu-Sabat. It was a long discussion. We couldn't finish. And so we are taking this time out now to address some of the things that we didn't have time to get into. We want to give a detailed explanation of the principles of Wu-Sabat, the culture, so that individuals who are striving in the culture to develop themselves, they understand what the culture of Wu-Sabat is all about, that this is the culture of our ancient ancestors. This is how we lived prior to all of the chaos that we see on the planet for the last 6,000 years. The last 6,000 years we teach has been chaos. And so you see division among us as a people. And so the master teacher of this day and time had reincarnated for the sole purpose of re-educating us as the reformer to restore our original way of life, Wu-Nawab, also known as Wu-Sabat. And that is what today's discussion is all about, is the culture of Wu-Sabat. And so we are here to make things clear on this culture and to help, if you have any questions or concerns about the culture. And the reason why I'm doing this is, I've been listening, for some time now, since I've been in this culture, as I keep telling you, for almost 35 years now. I've seen a lot of confusion, a lot of confusion. And so it's kind of interesting. I think because this doctrine, I think, is very difficult for our people because we've lost so much. We fell away from so far from how we used to live, how our ancestors lived. And so the master is working to restore our cultural ways that has been, one, it was outlawed by the Greeks about 2,500 years ago, So when the Greeks came and took over ancient Kemet, or the Persians around 500 BC, 300, Alexander the Greek came in, they began to outlaw the culture of Wu-Sabat. And so, like with the Greek, Alexander's general Ptolemy's, excuse me, they came in changing things, and this is how they began to rewrite the culture. This was the beginning of these religions that hit the planet. And so as they were promoting these new religions of Judaism and Christianity, they had to suppress where they was getting this information from, ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet. And so, our culture literally was suppressed by that time. So you're talking about 2,500 years ago. And then when you move up to scale around 600 AD, when the Muslims came in, I think the Muslims invaded Egypt, Kemet, around 640 AD. Then they suppressed the culture even hard. They forced our people who were living in ancient Kemet to embrace Islam or be persecuted. This is why a lot of people don't know about the migrations. When all these invasions were invading ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, or the proper name is Tamaray, by the way. It's not even Kemet, for those who don't know, but it's Tamaray. When they were invading Tamaray, or that place we call Egypt, a lot of our people, millions, you talk about, they began to migrate out of Egypt into either the southern part of Africa, Central Africa, and West Africa. This has been documented. When the Greeks came in, there was a migration out, because of the fact that the Greeks were persecuting the people. And so those who didn't want to deal with the persecution, they migrated in, further into the continent. When the Romans came in, it was another migration, and they have this documented where there were whole cities and towns that used to be populated with people, and then the population was gone because the people left. Because when the Greeks came in, they started taxing the people. When the Romans came in, they started imposing taxes on the people. And when the Muslims came in, they did the same thing. They imposed the culture. This new Islamic culture thing they was imposing on the people. So there was a lot of migrations, throughout the continent away from this area, because, ancient Egypt, this location of Northeast Africa, of Egypt, was the hub for our people. It was the main capital, so to speak, for the whole continent, was connected to the culture. A lot of people don't know that. Of course, they do their best to suppress it. But when you look at Nubia and Sudan, that was the hub. Or Nubia, Sudan, it's called Sudan. Kush is called Kush in ancient times. And Egypt, those areas, this northeast part of the continent, Africa, was the hub of cultural development. So everyone was connected to the culture. People don't know that. That's why we're here. This is why the master teacher is here. So again, we lived by principles. we had a way. We lived by principles, and so this is why we are doing these discussions, to make the principles clear, the lifestyle clear. Because as I listen to a lot of students of the master, a lot of them are not clear on the culture. They're really not. And so, it's up to you guys to study these discussions, analyze what we're talking about in these discussions, and spread the word. Let people know what the culture of Wu-Sabat is really all about, because there's a lot of misinformation about the culture and misinformation about who Dr. Malachi Z.K. York is. It's too much misinformation. And they don't, and for whatever reason, these individuals don't want to come to a channel like mine to get more clarity, because that's what I'm dedicated to, is to help people clear on the culture of Wu-Sabat, to help people make them clear on who the master teacher is. And as I always say in my discussions, for those who do not know me, my name is Peti Sina Tebtu Re'e, and I've been over 35 years student teacher of the profound doctrine of the master teacher, known to us as Panabab Yananan, also known as Dr. Malachi Z.K. York, who has been teaching us this ancient culture we identify as Wu-Sabat, also known as Wu-Nawab, that, like I said, has been outlawed on this planet. We weren't living our pristine culture. You would have to go back 6,000 years before you realize, before we can really see the height and how prime our culture is. Keep in mind, they have been lying about history, family. The Mukasu, the disagreeable ones, have done a great job of distorting history. They don't want to tell you about the ancient cities of Mu, right? They don't want to tell you about the ancient cities of Atlantis. They don't want to tell you about the ancient city of Lemuria. They do their best to cover these things up about civilizations or societies we set up in Antarctica before the ice was there. They do their best to cover that information up. There are people who've been trying to expose it. That Caucasian, I think, what's his name? Graham Hancock. He's been trying to expose it, but they've been giving him a lot of pushback. But the truth is there. The facts are coming out. The History Channel actually has been putting out a lot of this information. They still want to say, it's not really true. We don't really have all the data. We're unsure. We're uncertain. Family, the last people we should ever trust or rely on is the European, because they spent their whole existence with us lying to us. All they have ever done is lie. So I'm not sure why our people take their word for anything. It's kind of ironic. I just don't get it, why we would listen to them. We've had many teachers who've given us information, and the master teacher has incarnated for the sole purpose of giving the facts about our history and here's the key, how to authenticate it. That's one of the things we talk about in the culture Wu-Sabat. It's about authentication, to verify, right? Not believe like religion just makes us believe. And so this is what the master teachers dedicated himself to. So when we go to our core cultural principles, right? We talk about Ashak, resurrection, the wisdom of the Hutri and Ma'at, relationships, morphic resonance / matrix, Leviathan, soul and spirit, health, and Pa'ut, right? Or we say the Smat, and Achak, which is the energies of existence. Now, these are the 9 core, cultural principles, not all, but some of the core cultural principles that we live by. Our whole culture is based on that. So what I want to do is show you in our books where this information is coming from, how I put it together, right? Because I just put it together based on all of the data that the master teacher has been giving us over the course since the 60s. Since the 60s. And then, you know what? I think that's a good place to start with some of the first books that the master teacher put out, right? Back in 1967, 1968. I've talked about this many times before here. The Bible Interpretations and Explanations, Book 1 and Book 2. Book 1 came out in 1967. Book 2 came out in 1968. Of course, you have some people that try to claim Dr. York didn't write those books, and that that's ridiculous. That just goes to show you how much people don't know our doctrine, because this information in the 60s was coded through our doctrine throughout the years, and I can show that. It's easy to show it. In fact, in 1993, we put out the book Breaking the Spell on the Blacks. It was just an update of this information in the 60s. The series of books called the Right Knowledge Scrolls were just an update. And those started coming out in 1993, 94, 95. And then he updated it again in 2001 with another series of books called the Right Knowledge Scrolls, which was a revision of that. And then anyone who studies the current books we have, the actual facts are updating this same information. If you look at the Pantarak called Black Magic, White Magic, it's literally an update from this information in the 60s, where the master teacher has been making what he's been teaching more clear and more clear and more clear for those who do not know. So a lot of, I wanted to make that clear, because a lot of individuals, say like 1 minute Dr. York is a Muslim, next minute Dr. York is a Hebrew, next minute he's a reverend preacher, next minute he's this, and they're making you think, if you listen to these individuals, they make you think he keeps changing the information. No, he doesn't. He's not. He hasn't been changing the information. He's been adding on to the information, not changing it. It's no different than you and I. We start in kindergarten, we get math, right? 1 + 1 is 2. Second grade, we get a little bit higher form of math. Third grade, by the time you get up to fifth, you're in algebra. You get up to 9th grade, you get into geometry and more advanced algebra. By the time you're 11th grade, you're dealing with trigonometry and calculus. It's all based on the core of mathematics. It's a progression in the knowledge. That's all Dr. York did, because as he said, when he started to teach in the 60s, the mentality of our people was so warped because of under racism, white supremacy for the last 500 years, where all you've been taught is that you're slaves, you come from nothing, you have nothing, you basically supposed to worship the white man as God. And that's what our people are at right now, worshiping the white man as God. They took away our self-determination, so we don't have no desire to rule ourselves. We're very comfortable voting for white men to rule us. And this is what the core of the mentality of our people. Even when you go, around the world, to whether go to the continent of Africa, or you go to in the Caribbean, Haiti, Jamaica, Barbados, Trinidad, the list goes on of places where we dominate. All we're doing is copying European culture because we see life through their perspective, thinking that they represent advancement and civilization. With all the things we did in ancient Kemet, why the master teacher wanted to take us there. He was telling us that in the 80s. He's like, if he had the ability, he would take us all to ancient Egypt so that you can see the magnificence of your ancestors. Egypt is the one place where at least is documented in stone, in ancient monuments of how advanced your societies were. Don't listen to these demons where they lie and say, oh, they built those pyramids just for burial tombs, like it had no scientific essence to it. Of course, the pyramids have a scientific essence to it. You're dealing with very advanced technology. Now, again, the History Channel has been breaking down the science of the pyramids. The master teacher wrote books on it, the science of the pyramids. That was done by Africans. We come from a very high culture, but the European, under racism, white supremacy for the last 500 years, have done a great job of making our people have low self-esteem, making us feel we come from nothing. We're nothing but hunter-gatherers, run around in diapers until the white man had to come educate us. They've done a great job of convincing us of things like that. And now you have black people who believe that stuff. In fact, if I have time, I'll show you a clip of a sister. It was like last month saying this. She's a politician. She has a voice. People listen to the sister. And she's saying this stupid stuff as if she basically saying that slavery was a benefit. Like it was it was like a blessing. This is the insanity that our people have been reduced to mentally. So when the master started to teach in the 60s, he had to gradually raise your consciousness, raise our consciousness up. And as you can see, a lot of people still can't accept it. That's why we have so many, Nawapian dropouts, as Prince York used to say, all of these individuals who left the culture because they just couldn't mentally comprehend our ancient culture, our science. As Africans, we're so connected to the European, we can't get out of the European mindset to develop an African mindset, a Nawapian mindset, that we come from a celestial people. Our origins is a celestial origins. We have family that's throughout the multiverse. We used to understand the multiverse. We understood how to move from one dimension to another dimension. These are the things the master teacher came to teach. These are the things the master teacher came to explain. How to develop yourself spiritually. Once you learn to reopen your third eye, and then you can be able to see interdimensionally, you'll be able to communicate with your ancestors. We've lost all of these abilities. So one had to reincarnate to re-educate us about this. There are no other black teachers that have this knowledge. The master teacher is an incarnation of these masters, as you see on the screen here, the Mozaku. He had to incarnate into a human body as a baby, and as the child matures, the spirit then can come forth. That's how that works. So when there's an incarnation, the spirit that's moving in this new body cannot bring forth its intellect until the child, the individual, transformed to a child into an adult. And then that spirit that came in there at birth, that soul force, is now able to move through the physical body. It's one of the things the master explained to us. So he's the firstborn of the mentally dead. The first one among us who has our original knowledge, our original origins, who knows exactly what our origins are. And this is all black people really are trying to figure out, what is our origins? Who are we? Are we Hebrews? Are we Muslims? Are we Christians? What are we? What is our original? What African tribe? Are we this tribe? Are we that tribe? and you have one among us who's been among us for the last 60 years explaining exactly who we are. And here's the caveat. His job is to teach us how to restore that same knowledge because it's encoded in all of our DNA. It's a birthright for all woolly hair, melanated people. Your genetic origins is in your blood. You just forgot the knowledge on how to tap into it. That is why one had to come. A spiritual master had to reincarnate to educate us, re-educate us on how to do it, how to unlock our own genetic history. So you don't have to believe anyone. But what is the problem? Problem is we all lack the discipline to develop ourselves spiritually. And that's what the master teacher has been dealing with. No one really wants to take the time out to develop themselves spiritually. And there's nothing he can do about that. We say you can lead the horse to water, but you can't make him drink. And this has been the issue. That's why if you ask anyone who left our organization why they left, the last thing they'll tell you, well, did you work on developing yourself spiritually? They'll give you 1,000 excuses why they didn't do it. Man, I ain't believe that. Or I didn't. They'll give you 1,000 reasons because here's an individual. The master teacher says, I'm a spiritual master teacher. So that's like joining, a basketball team and you refuse to dribble the ball. So why did you join the team? I'm the coach. I'm going to teach you how to play basketball at a high level. You joined something and you never participated, did any of the drills, the rituals to become a good player? Well, this is what you'll see with individual students who claim they used to be students, misleading you, making you think they know exactly what the culture is about. And when you ask them anything about them, their personal self, their own personal spiritual development, you get crickets. They didn't master the meditation practices Dr. York taught. They didn't master the concentration exercises. They didn't master the breathing techniques. They didn't master how to control the negative spirit forces moving through them. They didn't do any of the things that he taught you to do to authenticate what he's teaching, because he said, I'm a spiritual master teacher, right? That's why I'm here. And your job is to develop yourself spiritually, and I will be your guide on how to do it. None of them took him up on that. Family, all you got to do is ask around, look around. And for those of you who are students and who know the truth, all you got to do is look in the mirror and ask yourself, how much time have you put to develop, your meditation skills? How much time, and this is something you're supposed to do every day, because you're not going to develop yourself spiritually once a week or once a month. Spiritual practice is just like eating, something you have to do every day to develop it into a skill set. No different at playing at a professional level of sports. People who play at a high level of anything or do anything at a high level, that's a lot of time, dedication, and focus. Be honest with yourself. How much time, dedication, and focus have you put to your own spiritual, development? Because I know like I said, I've been around for 30. First of all, it took me a long time just to even get to the level where I was comprehending these things that the master teacher was explaining. So first is comprehending it from studying the data. And then once you're able to comprehend, then you have to, I'm going to now put the data into practice. And in order to put the data into practice, you have to have conditions, lifestyle conditions, so that you can do it. You have to have the time, the ability, the intellect. There's a lot that goes into that. This is why the master teacher set up the community. Because trying to do it individually, and I've talked about this before, living in your own home or whatever, it's very difficult because you're constantly being distracted by family, friends, holidays, events, all types of things are going on in our lives, work, you name it. And our spiritual development is put on the back burner. And then we start chastising and dogging out the master teacher as if he did something wrong, and no one wants to look in the mirror. He's doing his job. His job is to educate. But if the student is not going to take advantage of the knowledge of the teacher, then what are you going to get? So with that being said, as I said, I want to go into just detailed explanations about the culture, right? What the culture actually represents, where the master teacher goes into these things. And so we go back to the first book. Like I said, this book, Bible Interpretations and Explanations, came out in 1967. I've read it before, and I'm going to read it again. Again, Bible Interpretations and Explanations. I've read this before in the past. This is very important. I'm going to go over the first 4 chapters, which is the most important, because now Dr. York, the master teacher, is talking about what the situation is on this planet. And that's the other thing, guys. When you're dealing with the culture Wu-Sabat, you have to look at it from a planetary perspective. Our people have a hard time doing that. We are locked into this perspective, our own little community. Our people don't know how to look beyond that. We have to look global again. We're a global people. We're boxing ourselves into these cubby holes. Now we got this. What's this? What's the FBA? Everybody talking about I'm FBA, Foundational Black American. Was that brother Tariq Nasheed has been pushing that? You know, I mean, what, you're not African no more? Foundational Black American. What is? I'm like, we're not Melon dominated. What Willie here? Willie here, Melon dominated people. If we keep fracturing ourselves, because that's what the continent did. It fractured itself. On a continent, so you have Igbo, you have Hausa, you have Dungala, you have Masa, you have, Hindendawa, you have the Dogon, you have the Zulu, you have the Igbo. We fractured ourselves so much, the same people, and we're wondering how we got colonized. We're wondering how we got enslaved. Anyone can conquer a divided people. Anyone can conquer. When are we going to learn? We keep fracturing ourselves. Our power is in our unity. How many times people got to tell you that? All the intelligent Black leaders are telling you that. Your power is in your unity, but we can't help it. Look in America. We got the Hebrew Israelites. You got the Moors over here. You have the 5%ers over there. You have the Nation of Islam over here. You got the Christians over here. We're fracturing ourselves. All these different gangs, the Crips over here. You got the Bloods over here. You got the Young Lords over here. You have the what's that? The Black Panthers over here. We keep fracturing ourselves and wondering why we keep getting beat up by other races of people. Races of people come into our neighborhoods and take over all the businesses. The Arabs control the gas stations. You got the East Indians controlling the motels and hotels. You got the Asians controlling the beauty supply store. And you're wondering why we can't compete, because we're fracturing ourselves. We love doing that. It's a sickness, though. That's the spell that the master teacher has been talking about. Our people are under a hypnotic spell of severe ignorance, of not understanding who they are by blood and racial identity, genetics. Because there's a movement going around talking about Black people in America are not the same as Black people in Africa. This is the sickness that we're moving through, and that sickness only exists because you lack spiritual knowledge of what you really are. This is why the master teacher did this lecture. If you look on the screen, what are human beings? Because he was talking about in this lecture, individuals will focus on anything, master anything except themselves. We'll become doctors, we'll become lawyers, we'll become basketball players, we'll become tennis professionals, we become artists, we become dancers, we become writers, we become singers, we become producers. We focus on everything except the most important thing is the self. Humans do not take the time out to understand themselves. Do you have a soul? Do you have a spirit? What is a soul? What is a spirit? Do you exist after the physical body died? Is when the physical body died, is that the end of you? All of these profound questions, we don't even attempt to figure it out within ourselves. Humans are perpetually ignorant on these subjects, on these concepts, especially whether or not you have a spirit and a soul. Black people talk about these things, thinking they have a spirit, but when you ask them to prove it, explain it, to document it, how do you explain it? A lot of them can't do it, and you get 1,000 different answers when you ask 100 different people. We're supposed to have a uniform based knowledge and education. And in fact, that's what makes America so great. America became a powerhouse. One of the reasons because of the uniform education. So if you was born and raised in Florida, you know, you'll get the similar education, even if you was born and raised 2,000 miles away in California. Same similar education. You know, if you're in California, you go, New York is 3,000 miles apart or something like that. You know, it's the same. It's uniform education. They have a uniform educational system among all 50 states. So everyone in the United States pretty much all speak English. And so the problem is what? You go to one African country and they're speaking 9, 10 different types of languages in one country. How do you have unity? If the people can't communicate, there is no unification. That's division. In division, you can easily take advantage of a divided people. You're supposed to have a unified mind. But what are we going to unite on? You have Muslims want to unite on Islam. You got the Hebrews want to unite on Hebrewism. You have the Christians want to unite on Christianity, or you got another group of black people want to unite on capitalism. We have all these conflicting points of view. We teach, why don't we unite on facts? Let's deal with origins, the facts of existence. Our ancestors dealt with the facts of nature. That's what our discussions are about. The first fact we deal with, what is a human being? And do you have a spirit? Do you have a soul? What is that? Is there life after death? These are the type of questions the master teacher was addressing. These are the books he was writing. Is there life after death? What is spirit and soul? What's more important than understanding who and what you are? The problem was the European put in your mind, man, nobody knows that. And you have our people saying that, man, nobody knows that. And we get caught up in that, listening to them, because they don't have these things. I mean, they have a spirit, but they don't have the soul force. And there's a difference between the spirit force and the soul force. Our ancestors talked about it. Anyone who knows anything about the 18th dynasty, Amenhotep III, his high priest, he had a high priest named Amenhotep, son of Hapel. Anyone who studies his teachings, one of the things the master teacher was telling us or taught us, that he was someone who focused on those concepts. He was one who was explaining the human being essence is of the body, the khatat, he said, right? The khatat, the ba, the soul force, and the ka, the spirit force. That goes back to Amenhotep III, who was a master teacher in his time. You talking about, that was like 3,500 years ago, 1500 BC, around that timeline. Amenhotep, son of Hapel, I'm sorry. He was the high priest to Amenhotep III. Excuse me. Very famous high priest. In fact, when he transitioned, he was deified. He became an ancestor that was worshipped and admired by his descendants. We always acknowledged our ancestors, the great things we do. I mean, we're kind of doing it today, right? We admire Michael Jordan. We admire LeBron James. It's really the same thing our ancestors did. The only difference is we weren't admiring our ancestors based on their athletic ability or their dancing ability or their singing ability. We was admiring our ancestors on their intellect, because that was what was supreme in our ancient culture, was the divine mind. That's what the whole teachings of Tahuti was all about. The wisdom of Tahuti was about, we acknowledge the superior mind and consciousness. That's what Tahuti represents, the divine mind of existence. a supreme consciousness. Why do you think the master teacher wrote the book, The Wisdom of Tahuti? Where is this at? Right here. The wisdom, the sacred wisdom of Tahuti. That was a principle that represented the divine mind in ancient Kemet. So our ancestors named themselves after that principle. Thutmose, Tahuti most. That's where it comes from. Thutmose the first, Thutmose the second, and Thutmose or Tahuti most the third. Europeans loved Tahuti most the third, said he was one of the greatest Egyptian rulers. And Mose, for those who don't know, means child or student of Tahuti. Thutmose, a student of Tahuti. He was a student of the divine mind principles of creation itself. Tahuti represented the creation force or the consciousness of existence, something the Europeans are trying to figure out today about consciousness. You hear me talk about it a lot. Is consciousness inherent within existence itself, or does it start in the brain? Our ancestors have long been explained that consciousness is existence itself, and there's different levels of consciousness. In this book here, The Wisdom of Tahuti, that the Greeks got and the Jews got and turned it into the Kabbalah, and they call it the Hermetic sciences and teachings, right? That they admit they got from ancient Egypt, who was teaching this high science. Of course, they love to change the name. And so when the master teacher rewrote it and updated it and corrected it, because they took out principles, they put in 7 principles of the Hermetic doctrine. When it was 9, it was always 9, the sacred number 9. They left out 2 principles. They left out the principle of the breath, and they left out the principle of growth. Anyone who knows anything about that, in fact, whenever our ancestors had transitioned and they put them in a coffin, they put 2 books in there. They put the Coming Forth by Day, which the Caucasians called it the Book of the Dead. That wasn't his name. It meant Coming Forth by Day was a book on resurrection, and the Book of Breathing, the science of breath. The breath of life, which is the Bible talks about in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7. It said, God took man and blew into man's nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. They got that information from Kemet, from the science of breath. That existence itself was based on breathing and in and out motion. Everything has this in and out motion to perpetuate life. That was an overstood principle, scientific principle that our ancestors knew. But this is the kind of knowledge and wisdom that was coming from the master teacher. But like I said, a lot of his students weren't ready for it. So he put this book out, The Mission Earth. This book came out back in 1996, right? And for those who see it, it's called Mission Earth and the Extraterrestrial Involvement. See, our people don't want to deal with the fact that life is throughout the multiverse. Because humans are caught in their senses: see, hear, taste, touch, and smell. The problem with that is that our sense perspective is very limited. Who's that actor now been talking about this? That actor Terrence Howard. He's been talking about these concepts. Actually, it's pretty. He says a lot of sharp things. That brother says things that are very similar to some of the things we're teaching. But humans are limited in your senses. You can't judge nature and existence by your 5 senses. There's so many different layers to that. This is why the Europeans had to create machines to detect the higher forces within nature. As melon-dominated people, woolly hair, our bodies are the machines. They're organic machines of nature that allow us to tap into any other forces of nature. But we can't do it because of the fact that our genetics have been poisoned. Our melanin is the key, but our melanin has become toxic. I've talked about this the other week. So a master teacher had to come and teach us how to purify our melanin. So the master in this book, they asked him a question: what is your assignment on planet Earth? The answer, Yanun says, my assignment is to re-spiritually educate the beings of the planet Earth who are children of, we use Elohim with the Nathar, that's older language, children of the Nathar, and to prepare 144,000 to be taken up for 1,000 years, then return to save the planet. That is the mission, family. That is the mission. This was the whole purpose of the students. The master came to reclaim a certain amount of us, 144,000. How many Nagato people on the planet? It's like what? It's a billion, over a billion of us. All he needed was 144,000 individuals who are willing to redevelop themselves spiritually. He was to be our guide. Once we were able to develop spiritually, which meant learning to reopen your third eye, then those individuals will be picked up by our family, the Nathar, who's waiting to pick up. Once they pick us up, then we get transported to a different location for education, to be properly educated, then come back to the planet to defeat the demons who are ruling the planet. That is the mission. That is the mission. In fact, the master talks about, brother put it on tape when he went to visit the master, I think back in 2017 or something like that, where the master teacher explaining, you know, his spiritual mission, what he was trying to do about how to go out of body. If I can find it, I'll put it up. I thought I had it here. Yeah, listen to this clip, family, on the master teacher talking about, the whole out of body thing that I talk about, being able to, move from the physical body, spiritual body. You have to learn to become in tune with your spiritual body. This is the core essence of our doctrine, of our culture.
Wabat is our.
You see the world, right? I told you it was going to happen. It's just beginning. It's going to get worse. It's not getting any better. They blow that trumpet, that's it.
We gotta get the family back in the power of love. We can beat these devils. We will beat these devils. But everybody has to work together.
I was watching you as you transcended right there, and I was like, whoa, see, part of your body, part of your referred to as your astral body, as you'll call it, part of it left lifted right up and went right back in. You like took a deep breath, and then you relaxed, and I saw it leave out your astral and then go right back in. That's what that's because you're caught up. Remember your thing caught up in two worlds? It says it could be caught up. You're caught up in two worlds. You're caught up between the spiritual world and the physical world because of your DNA, because your what they call up your blood type, and that has to do with the arrangements of your nucleotides. There's a cinema called Doctor Strange. A new cinema out called Doctor Strange. Not very new, you can get it, but Doctor Strange. And they're going to explain, in that movie, they're showing all kind of ancient symbols and stuff that just blew my mind. And they're going to talk about the astral body and all that. I just disclosed that information to the next level. That's what I've been doing. So I started giving them the steps on how to make that next level. And part of it is how to, I explain the astral body and how to get it out of the body. Because you go out, but you drop right back in. And sometimes when you're sleeping, you'll be sleeping and you'll feel like you're sitting up, but you're still laying down. Your spiritual master won't let you go any further because you could get stuck out the body. But, you'll wake up, but your astral body will be out your body, and you could go into what's called a time loop. A time loop means you keep on reliving that same event over and over again. but you won't know it because you'll be body and spirit. Your soul will step out. Your soul can disconnect itself from the human body, and the spirit, which is the life force, the personality, and the you is still there. And all the things that you think are still there, but the essence of you, the decision maker of the spiritual side of you, that's a better way of putting it, is out the body. If I was able to sit with you and I could train you in no time to just step right up out your body, and you'll sit there and you'll look back and I'll point, and you'll be able to see yourself sitting there out your body. And because you have someone there, because someone has to be there to guide you through those steps. Otherwise, you can get, there's so many gateways and doorways interdimensionally that one can get lost in. That's what Astral Christos was trying to tell everybody. You can get caught up. And that's why he told what he told Judas. He told Judas, he said, Judas, you just got the devil. I just saw Satan enter your body. Get out of here. But they said you are Satan. But what Jesus said in Aramaic was, I just saw Satan. I just saw the spirit of evil enter your body. Get up out of here because the reason why I say get up out of here is because it's infective. It can spread from person to person. The same way when a bunch of women are living in the same house and all their menstrual cycles line up. With men, when a bunch of men live in the house, their emotional or angers towards each other line up. So they tend to side with each other against other men. It happens on both, on the infinite, which is the circle, and finite, which is the square. It happens both ways. There's nothing to do with Freemasonry. Freemasonry came thousands of years after what I'm trying to explain. Okay?
You see that level of knowledge, family, is beyond. But the master has been trying to teach us our spiritual wisdom and knowledge, again, since the 60s, but mentally we just haven't been ready for it. A lot of it has to do with the culture, being under the European culture for the last 500 years has really messed us up mentally. And you see our behavior around the globe. We're nothing like our ancestors used to be. We unfortunately have degenerated in so many ways. And the biggest issue is the blood. That's why they attacked our blood. When you are able to get into a people's bloodline, you bring in those different spirits. And so that's why the European put so much time in making sure that we don't know anything about spirituality, spirit forces and spirit beings and interdimensional travel that the master teacher has been sent here to teach. Why people think he's crazy, because we literally lost our knowledge of spiritual science. And what's so odd about that, anyone who studies, I've said this before, you study African culture, indigenous culture, even Native American culture, everyone knows in ancient cultures about spirit forces and spirit beings. Everyone knows this. Traveling into, being able to travel in the spirit realm. The Native Americans talk about that a lot. But we let the European come along and say, nah, that stuff ain't real. And we just believe them. And we've been having this knowledge for thousands of years. And we let they just come along, nah, that's not real. And we just accept it while he puts it in his movies. He puts it in movies and then tell you, that's fake. That's movies. That's fiction. That's not fiction. And they do that on purpose to mess with your psyche, to make you think it's fiction. That's why you investigate, you research, you analyze, you study. You do your own homework. You don't take no one's word for anything. That's how you break the spell. But we're so comfortable just accepting and believing things, and that's what religion does to you. It just makes you accept things without investigating, researching the facts. This has been the challenge. This has been the problem. So the master teachers has painstakingly have tried to raise our intellect about our own spiritual nature, but because of the culture, we just reject it. So as he taught us before, many are called, few are chosen, right? Straight out of the Bible. Many will be called to this information, but few will choose It because they lack the willpower to really let go of the European system for an African system. We, again, was said before, we've lost our self-determination, the desire to rule ourselves. We're deciding whether or not to vote for Joe Biden, who wants to start World War III, or Donald Trump, who just got convicted, by the way, who wants to start a civil war in the United States. Why are black people so caught up in voting for European Caucasian men to rule them? Look at this. Donald Trump, guilty verdict. The guy's, he was having sex with some porn star and had hush money, had to pay her off, whatever. They listen, I personally, be honest with you, I don't agree with the trial. I think it's a freaking mockery and it's a joke in the United States. Because if you're going to put a president on trial, that's what you're going to put him on trial for? When every president of this country, all they do is murder people, put them on trial for something real. They're all murderers. Barack is a murderer. George Bush is a murderer. They're all murderers. Put them on trial for real stuff, not some silly. I mean, it just shows you how degenerate their rulership is, and yet these are the people we want to rule us. You don't see that we're under a spell. Our people think this is okay. We're under a spell, man. We can't see it. You got, who's this over here? Joe Biden. Putin is threatening World War III because he's like, y'all all ganging up on me. I'm going to start nuking Europe because they now, the Biden and them were talking about how, they want to up the ante with the Ukraine and told the Ukraine, hey, I want you to start attacking military spots in Russia. Before, when the war started, the United States said don't use, because the United States are the one sponsoring this war with Ukraine. They're giving them all the money and all the weapons and all the training, but they told them don't use those weapons to attack Russia. Only use those weapons to attack Russian soldiers who invaded Ukraine. But because they said that the Ukrainians are losing the war, now that, the Europeans, the French, and the Americans are saying, man, just attack Russia. And Putin is like, if y'all all gang up on me, I'm going to nuke y'all. I'm going to drop a nuclear bomb. And see how insane these people are? Are we paying attention to this? Our people are not paying attention to what's really going on this planet. These people are literally threatening to blow up the whole, kill everybody if things don't go their way. Y'all see what's going on in the Middle East? The chaos there, all that bloodshed and mass killing. And this is what the master teacher kept warning. He said it's only going to get worse before it gets any better. He told us this has nothing to do with us. Get out their way. These conflicts have nothing to do with us. We have our own mission. We have our own agenda. Our focus is supposed to be making contact with our ancestors and our family, because the Europeans are in contact with theirs. That's how they got their information. It is time for us to reconnect with our galactic family. But we're so caught up in what the Europeans are doing, what these foreigners are doing. They have nothing to do with us, but we won't leave them alone. We can't see that these people are crazy. I'm like, it's sad. I mean, it's a spell. They're trying to destroy any gains we get, like this one right here talking about DEI. They want to destroy the Republicans want to get rid of DEI. Stands for diversity, equity, inclusion, where black people are getting into positions that normally that the white people want to let us get into because of racism, right? And so we've been fighting for years to get into positions, of positions of power and wealth and development. Now white people are fighting back, and they're literally outlawing all the DEI stuff. When are we going to get a clue? We can't. We have our own stuff. All we need is each other. We need no one else. All we need is each other. We need no one else. But all of that division, this division that we keep again, let me go back, right? This was, I said before, the master started with that. Going back to, I was going to read the book, Bible Interpretations and Explanations. He said this in 1967. 1967, there is a paragraph 1. There is a spell upon the Ethiopian. He was calling us Ethiopian at that time. The woolly hair people, right? Ethiopian means ether people, the people from ether energy, the suns. That's what it stood for. Okay, that was a term that allegedly the Greeks gave us. We said ach for ether in our language, or achach, we actually say. Okay, it says there's a spell on us, right? The woolly hair people, the world over, and it is a spell of spiritual ignorance and racial indifference cast upon the Ethiopian by Leviathan from the Caucasian and his Bible, right? And this is why no one has been able to really unite the Ethiopian in any considerable numbers. And it's also why people of African descent have not been able to make real progress towards freedom and equality. With the help of the Caucasian, Leviathan, which is the god of the Caucasian, these are the negative spirit forces of nature. Leviathan represents them, family. Okay, Leviathan hypnotized the Ethiopian with its magic powers and sealed the hypnosis with spiritual ignorance and racial indifference. And the only way the spell can be broken and the Ethiopian be free again and free indeed is that the spiritual ignorance be destroyed by spiritual knowledge and understanding, and racial indifference be destroyed by racial knowledge and understanding. And this is how we solve our problems. We have to re-educate us about our own spiritual nature, and we have to fall back in love with blackness. Stop running around with blonde hair and blue eyes. The only way to fix that is through your children. Fix yourself, fix your children, fix yourself, fix your children. Stop allowing your children to be seduced. You can't help the ones who are already seduced. Those individuals are unfortunately mentally gone. And there's millions of us who are mentally gone. Those Negroes will not listen to you. Some maybe, very few, most will not. The goal has always been the children, to properly educate them so that they're not brainwashed. Because that's what the dragon is focused on. The Europeans, the Mukasu, are focused on the upcoming generation. They're focused on childbirth from infants all the way up to about 15 years old. Once you hit 15, they know they got you mentally. And it's very difficult to get, our people out of that mindset. Once they reach that teenage years, they get locked into the culture. Because it's an actual frequency, it's a vibration they get locked into, and no matter what you say, no matter what words you use, it doesn't penetrate. Because it's a frequency, it's a vibration. So, so that's the power of this spell. And so we're going back to 1967. The master is explaining about this spell. So when you look at the current books on this particular topic, you go to what's this book right here? The pod to that. Let's find it. This one is called the one called 30 Spirits, dealing with the different spirit forces that are moving through us as a people. This is the heading. The pod to that 30 spirits, right? The master teacher broke that down. The different negative spirit forces that move through us. He says you must bind the 30 spirits that seek to control you, the very voices of your Salafu ancestors who lived in the image of the beast and at death, Temwat, have been trapped in this hell. These are family members who have transitioned, right? And because they had no spiritual knowledge, you get stuck in the spiritual plane. The next realm we're on what we call the material realm. The next realm here is the plane of force. They get trapped. That's what all this ghosts. Research ghosts, family. Do your homework. Research ghosts. A lot of our family members are trapped in those realms. They're trapped there, and you're connected to them by blood. We have a spiritual connection to all of our ancestors, the positive ones and the negative ones. And the negative ones are the ones who've been plaguing us, because the last 4 generations generations of family are the closest to you in blood. So those spirits have the most access to you mentally and spiritually. You're connected to the last 4 generations. The further the generation go back, the weaker the connection is. So now here's what you do. If you look at the lifestyle of your family, the last 4 generations of your family, and analyze how they lived. And if you notice, most of them, all of us came out of slave culture within the last 400 years. So most of all our family members are ignorant, one, had no knowledge of who they were, what their origins were. They had no spiritual science. They didn't know anything about blackness and the essence of how great they were. And they were, basically subservient to Caucasians. So a lot of them, when they transition, they got trapped in this realm and they're plaguing your mind. This is where our negative behavior comes from. This is where our addictions are coming from. These are the things, this is what the master is explaining. Paragraph 9, he says, you must bind them and free them from the realm of hell, that you will be free of their whispers into your ibab, your heart, and akal, mind, which affects your very actions each zaman, day of your life. The Sawa'u voices who whisper to your inner mind as what is best to do. They're speaking to you constantly. You don't realize it because we're not in tune with our own spiritual nature, where our negative habits are coming from. It's coming from spirits within us. The thoughts, you think that's you get those thoughts. Those are the thoughts that are coming from us or coming to us from disagreeable ancestry. The positive ancestors in our blood can't reach us because we're too weak spiritually. That's why you have to develop yourself spiritually. That's why you have to do the meditation, the prayer, the concentration. You got to restrict yourself of being around negative environments, negative people, eating negative foods. You have to learn to put yourself in environments that enhance your spiritual development. First key is the sunlight. That's why, we talk about it a lot. They keep us away from the sun. The sun is what recharges your melanin. Your melanin is what gives your body the spiritual strength it needs. But we keep toxifying our melanin. And I told you the other week, sugar and salt is what does that. But this is spiritual knowledge that our people are completely clueless to. They have no idea about any of this subject matter. And if you lack the willpower to develop yourself spiritually, then why not support those who do have the willpower? That's why I keep telling, people, support what I do. Spread the word. This is what I'm dedicated to do. I don't have any issues or hangups with that. I have problems like everyone else. I'm dealing with spiritual issues like everyone else, but my willpower pushes me to work through it. It's not easy, but we have no other choice. We have to work through it. And this is what the master teacher, as a spiritual master, to spiritually re-educate us. That's what makes him unique above any other so-called black leader out there. And that's not to take anything away from our black leaders. From the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, Marcus Garvey, Frederick Douglass, Martin Luther King Jr., Malcolm X, Louis Farrakhan, the list goes on. You got Harriet Tubman, you got Sojourner Truth, you have Queen Nzinga, you have Hatshepsut, but they weren't spiritual masters. They were not noon beings. These noon beings, noon. Then you have Razun, Zanun, and Dakun. These are universal masters, spiritual masters, beings who are responsible for the universe itself. And all woolly-haired melanated people are related to these beings. But we've lost our spiritual connection to them because the white man taught us to worship his spirits. He taught us the white man was God. So our people worshiping this blonde-haired, blue-eyed Jesus. That's their spirit force, the Holy Ghost. the ghost forces, the death forces. That's who we're worshiping. And that cuts you off, that puts you on their vibration, and it disconnects you from your ancestors' vibration. That's why a master had to incarnate. Dr. York is not some regular guy. This is a unique being. There is no one else teaching this type of knowledge. And I'm talking about nowhere on this planet, whether it be the continent, excuse me, or here in the Americas. No one has this level of knowledge in detail about who we are, how our origins, and what happened to us. He put this book out. I like to recommend it all the time, The Ancient Egyptian Materialization Rite. We'll go here in the very first paragraph or second paragraph. It says, in this ritual, this is a ritual on how to develop yourself spiritually. This is why they took our community from us. They took our land, because we had all these different rituals to help you develop yourself. And so this is one of the rituals, the materialization rite, how to materialize your oversoul, how to connect with your higher self. That's what this ritual is about. How to also connect with your spiritual family, our family that's on the higher dimensions, right? He says this ritual one makes contact with beings that have made themselves known by physical manifestation on this planet throughout time. This ritual is just one of the many doorways to return to the source while yet still in the physical body, making available the spiritual link and communication at all times. You will learn more as you attune to your own family on the other side. Once you learn to make contact with your higher spiritual family, right? The masters, once you learn to make contact with them, then you will get more education. The master's job is to teach you how to do that, to get real instructions, because we're not going to get the real knowledge on this dimension, especially when the Mukasu, they monitor everything we do. They study everything we do. So you can get them any, they're not even privy to the type of universal knowledge that we are privy to, because if they had it, as you can see, they would destroy the planet. They already are trying to destroy the planet with the little knowledge that they do have. So in order for us to how can I say, to be reconnected with our family, you first have to do the work. We have to reconnect with our family spiritually. This is the whole essence of our culture and what the mission is all about. This is why the master teacher came here. This is why our principles, our way of life are so key in understanding all of these things. All of these things, everything I'm saying to you is what relates to our principles. Why we live a certain way, what our goals are, what our objectives are, the importance of our goals, the importance of our objectives, what we're up against on this planet, what we're dealing with. That's what we're pointing out here. This is what we're making clear. This is what we must become aware of. We must become in tune with these realities. What more can we say, right? Our goals: raise the self, fighting Leviathan, and working to build Sabbatia. These have been our goals since the master teacher started to educate us, re-educate us. But, you must become a good person again. We learned a lot of bad habits living under the European culture. A lot of bad habits we've developed that we have to learn to get these bad habits out of our nature. Because it's I mean, it's really, obviously, it's really messed us up. There's a book where the master makes a distinction when it comes to contacting your ancestors, because you hear that a lot with Black people and who talk about spirituality and making contact with your ancestors. Excuse me. But what they don't realize is you have different levels of ancestors on the spiritual realm. Okay. And so they're not, again, they just don't have that level of knowledge. So this is a book the master teacher put out where he's explaining that. In fact, this book right here, let me go back to it. Actual Facts number 22. This is called 18 plus 18 equal 37 genes of the mitochondria DNA. That's the name of this particular book. Might have came out a decade ago. We're going to go to page 80. Let's see right here. 83, on page 83, right? Because he's talking about making contact with your ancestors, but there are two layers of ancestors that we talk about. When most Black people are talking about their ancestors, they don't understand there are different layers to them. And the reason why is they would have to understand the SMAT circle, okay? Because us humans, we're on the third density, a planet that's vibrating on a very weak density right now, okay? But we have ancestors who are on realms, on planets that are in the fourth density, fifth, sixth, all the way up to 9. The master is teaching us to make contact with our family who are at the 9th density, okay? Because most people don't realize when they talk about their ancestors, they're actually talking about individuals who are trapped in this third density in the spiritual plane. I was talking about the ghosts. A lot of our family within the last 4 generations are trapped. Now, some of them are in the 4th density. We do have because that's where we go next anyway. Those who resurrect, the next realm we go to is the 4th density, because we're not ready to go straight to a 9th density. That's what more education is all about, the master talks about. But here in this particular scroll I just brought up, Actual Facts number 22, he talks about that. He says, paragraph 220, he says, and so in fact, you and they have been prepared to transform yourselves. Then to breed just as the Picasso was bred to breed disagreeable. It says your melanin, here's the key right here, your melanin also conducts electrical fields. He says high electrical conductivity in melanin, it can achieve conductivity of 1 ohm or centimeter. He says it is the high electromagnetic field by which Panatharu reaches out to you, and the lower fields your Salafu ancestors of your genes call out to you. So the lower fields, okay, and he has this is the energy of the body, right? And so the lower fields, you're able to contact the family in your bloodline, okay, because they're not vibrating as high as the Nathar. So you would have to raise your energy. You have to develop your energy more potent to reach out, to be able to communicate with the Nathar. That's why the master has taught us it's easy to contact your family in your bloodline, specifically on your mother's side. They're the easiest to contact, right? Because that energy is that's a stronger link or stronger connection. But this is why the importance of developing yourself spiritually, doing the spiritual rituals, the meditation, the concentration exercises, the rhythmic breathing exercises, the chanting, the prayers, all of those things develop the spiritual side of you. Eating a proper diet, eating clean, right? Not really eating flesh, overcoming that, because the flesh weighs the body down. It saps your energy. Okay? You have to learn things to keep what foods to eat and what not to eat, so that you don't cloud the brain with mucus, because that's what flesh does. It goes straight to the brain, and it slows down the brain, the energy, electrical flow in the brain. That makes it difficult to think. This is all knowledge that We have to learn, right? The negative spirits are moving through our heart center. I've talked about this before. Right here on the screen. What is the heart center? The heart center is not the physical heart that has 4 chambers and pumps blood, but it is the spiritual heart that is the meeting point between man's spiritual desires and humans' cardinal desires. Where your heart, because there's a lot of blood there, what that blood is energy, and that's a very potent energy center there. And that's how positive spirits move through you through your heart center, and negative spirits move through you through your heart center. And you'll know what kind of spirits are moving through you based on how you think. So if you have a lot of bad habits, you have a lot of negative thoughts, you know what kind of spirits are moving through you. That's why you have to be mindful when you're doing spiritual work, because when you're doing spiritual rituals, you open yourself up to spiritual contact. And if you're doing spiritual rituals and you have a lot of addictions, that's not a good thing. You have to overcome those addictions, because those addictions are a sign that negative spirits are attached to you. That's why you keep doing things, that is not good for you, right? So let's say you're a smoker, and smoking is bad, but you do it anyway, right? Which is an addiction. Well, you keep getting the desire to smoke. Those are the negative spirits who activate hormones in the body that trigger pleasure. What do they call that? DMT or whatever. Because the European would just tell you, yeah, these chemicals are going on in your body, and then he tried to prescribe you drugs to deal with it. But what he doesn't, what they do not address is the thoughts. It's one thing having a desire, but desire comes from thoughts. And those negative spirits move through your heart center to put the thoughts in your mind. They keep putting the thoughts. Why do you think that they keep playing these commercials, these negative commercials of all this bad food? Why do you think they keep making these negative movies? The demonic movies they love to make. They're always making demonic horror movies to put negative thoughts in your mind, to scare you, to create fear and fright. All of those movies is what got everyone living here in America afraid of the dark. Is a murderer coming? Is a burglar coming at night? Is Freddy Krueger coming at night? Is Jason going to knock my house down? Is there going to be? And they put it on the news. They're always talking about something negative on the news, right? They keep showing us home invasions. This person's robbing this home. They broke into someone's house. They stole this person. They're constantly on their media. They flood our minds with negativity, war, bloodshed, famine, you name it. Or they flood you with greed, money. We're making money here, doing this, doing that. We live in a very oppressive and depressive, environment. This goes back to why in our principles, live up for and by each other, why we must have our own communities. That way we can block those things out. This is what the master teacher was striving to do with creating communities, why they wanted to stop him. Because if we don't have no communities, we have no protection against all of this negative bombardment of the media. This is why our principles are so key. Our culture is so key to protect us from these adverse forces. Again, a lot of people don't really understand what the master teacher was doing because we don't understand this system. We've all been miseducated. The European never told us the truth about who they are and how they run their system and society and their government and what racism and white supremacy is all about and the negative effects it has on your psyche. Remember, when they convince you to worship the white man as God, it literally changes your vibration, your frequency, and that frequency disconnects you from your ancestors, and it connects you to their ancestors, their negative spirits who will not help you. Their spirits torment us. They feed off of negativity, bloodshed, hatred, greed, lust, desire. Their spirits feed on that. And that's why they promote that type of behavior. But if you have no spiritual knowledge, you have no defense against those things because you don't know what's happening. And you think that's just who I am. We say that all the time. But Wu-Sabat is here to set the record straight. This is why the master is here. This is the importance of the culture. It's so important. So we go back to one of the first principles the master drills in us. that we must embrace is Ashuk, right? Divine love, Ashuk. The master has been addressing this concept to us again from the very beginning. Ashuk, when the Ashuk is in Sabaya, but when we used to in the 70s and 80s, we were learning classical Arabic. So the Arabic had a different name. It was Ish. It was Ashuk, and in Arabic you said Ish. It's the same word. It meant divine love. Ish. And so the first spiritual order the master teacher introduced us to was called the Sufi order, the pure Sufi. And in that order, it's called the universal order of love. In fact, let me show you. I think I have it here, right here. This is one of the Sufi pamphlets that the master teacher wrote. One of the degrees and studies on, because we had spiritual orders. We had the Sufi order, the first thing the master introduces way back in the 60s, and then he initiated that order when the students were ready for the lessons that started in 1985. And so this is one of the lessons from back then. And then that order shut down, and then he reinitiated a new order in the early 90s, like 1994. 93, he set up the ancient mystic order of Melchizedek, which is a higher level of the Sufi order. And then that order shut down in 1999, and then he initiated us into our original order. The highest of the orders for us is the ancient Egyptian order, which is what we're under now, the ancient Egyptian order. All of those older orders were precursors to where we at now, which is the ancient Egyptian order. Keep in mind those older orders, the Sufi order and the ancient order of Melchizedek, all of that connects us to the Mesopotamian doctrine, though, the Bible, the biblical characters. Sufism comes out of Islam, and the ancient mystic order Melchizedek comes out of the Bible. Melchizedek is a character of the Bible, and Sufism is, essence of Islam. That connects us back to religion, where our goal is to get back to our indigenous culture coming out of Africa, starting in ancient Kemet, ancient Tamaray. But again, you can't feed a baby steak. You have to feed them, you have to give the baby breast milk. And so this was an introduction into our spiritual teachings back in the 80s. The Sons of the Green Light. El Qutb, the master was called El Qutb, which meant the center, the spiritual guide of the Sufi order of the Sons of the Green Light. And he says here, every worthy devotee of the universal order of love reaches a point in his or her studies where he enters for the first time into the portals of inner knowledge. So he's talking about, the process of the spiritual teachings, but it's called, I quote, the universal order of love. This was reintroducing us into Ashuk, divine love. And the only way to tap into that is by developing yourself spiritually connecting with the spiritual essence of creation itself. This is the ultimate goal of every student. So the master talks about Ashuk in this particular book here. Actual Facts. This is Actual Facts. Number 45 is called The Guidance, Pa Hadayan, The Guidance. And he talks about this, Ashuk, in this book. Now, this book came out, I just showed you a Sufi book. That was in the 80s. This book I'm reading from now just came out about a decade ago, 6-7 years ago, right? He says this, I have revealed the actual facts of Wu-Sabat into the Wabat hearts of those that Pa Muntaru, the overseers, singled out from birth. Watch them over their lives. Okay? I repeat that. He says this, I have revealed the actual facts of Wu-Sabat into the Wabat hearts of those that Pa Muntaru, right? Our family singled out from birth. Watch them over their lives. These are you guys, those who are true students of Wu-Sabat. The masters are watching you. He says, this I have taught this proclamation in Zabor, writing while Pa Muntharu were carefully observing. Our ancestors been observing this planet, family. He says, I recite truth for your hearing before your discerning eye and even echo it in your hearts. Then I place in your hands, that is powerful balag message, may cleanse your mukwan, your being, and attune your khatat, your etheric body, gave you the tones, F, A, and C, the power to break the mental bondage and usher you into tatmum, perfection, by way of sound right reasoning. Perchance, you will wake up from the long abysmal Hajj Shilel Nawam, the spell of sleep, Leviathan, Kingle, and recognize your true nature. As for those who have enmity within you, listen and understand. Ashuk is our top priority. Therefore, if you can speak the Lahaj of Patapau, the world, and the literacy articulation with brilliance, yet do not consider Ashuk, your speech is for naught. It would have been preferable that you kept silent. If you are wise, endowed with much wisdom of this world, peering through the supernatural and performing miracles, yet without Ashuk, you will still lack integrity, neither is any goodness residing in you. For the Hakati reality, you are only pretending to know the way to Saheh Hadayan, the right guidance. Even when you distribute your wealth on good deeds and sacrifice your very lives in service to others without Ashuk, it would be as if you had neither contributed anything nor made yourself a sacrifice in the service of others. Ashuk is patience with our own people, tender towards the impoverished. Nakor, respect and help our Mukda'u, elders, upholding Patarak, the way, to Sadek Hadayan, the true guidance. Ashuk does not embrace Kanani, jealousy, or demonstrate pride or thawat, ego, or practice aggression. Ashuk treats everyone kindly. It does not get upset quickly or seek its personal desires frequently. Ashuk is contented and does not contemplate vengeful thoughts concerning others. Ashuk does not reveal over oppression, yet over freedom and justice. Ashuk accepts whatever one's friend and family says as fact if they are claiming to be Munwapu or Nawapians, yet turns away from those who are Tim Suwebmul, untruthful, and lost to the Sadek Hadayan, true guidance. This is long suffering and eternal across the eons of time. Ashuk will last triumphantly. Ashuk is Wunawat, Pa Hadayan. So as you can see, family, without Ashuk, nothing you do matters. Because when you are in the body of Ashuk, you're doing it for the greater good of existence. You want to do your part as a part of a child of the creative force. But when you're doing things for your own personal gain, your own personal benefit, to make yourself look good or to make yourself feel better, and you're not doing it because you want to contribute to absolute nature, to the creative force, then what you do doesn't matter. No matter how good you think you're doing things, you have to do it in the body of Ashuk because you want to connect with the creative force. You want to do your part in nature. The sun every day does his part. The sun shines on all of us. Without the sun, we wouldn't have any life. The sun does his part. The earth does her part. She brings forth the fruit, the herbs, that many things we need to survive as humans, the earth provides. That's Ashuk. And you have your part to do in Ashuk. See, the disagreeable ones, everything they are about is selfishness. If you study European culture, Western culture, the whole society is based on selfishness, greed, exploitation, deception, thievery, lies, lust, murder. You know, their whole culture is centered around all of the negative attributes. We are just the opposite of them. We have nothing to do with their way of life, their way of thinking. This is the goal. So this is, giving you a guidance towards the culture and the cultural principles of Wu-Sabat. As we said our last discussion, we do things based on the culture of Wu-Sabat. We live by the principles of Wu-Sabat. These are the details. I'm reading you from the master teacher's own words, the details of our lifestyle, why we do what we do, what our culture is all about, what our mission is, right? We explain what our mission is to resurrect and make contact with our ancestors. Once you're able to do that, then our ancestors can pick us up for transport, for education. For those of you who are mentally strong enough to develop yourself spiritually, it does not matter how old you are. It does not matter how old you are. It does not matter how old you are. Of course, when the master started this mission, he wanted to focus on the children. The children doesn't have addictions. The children doesn't have the bad habits, right? So he wanted to raise purified children starting in the 70s and the 80s, but that didn't work. Why it didn't work? Because he said that the adults messed it up. I talked about this in our last discussion, where he talked about how the adults, they messed up the mission. They poisoned, unfortunately, the children's mothers were giving the children poisoning with bad food and bad information to things they shouldn't got exposed. And so we lost all of those children, So, the master explains that whole thing I told you last week. To check out this lecture, it's called Why We Use Islam. And the master explains it in that particular lecture. You can find it. It's on YouTube, Why We Use Islam, where he goes into explaining that, in this lecture, Why We Use Islam. And so, my point being is that it doesn't matter the age. Anyone can resurrect. Anyone can restore themselves spiritually. I'm only saying the children, because they don't have the bad habits. When you become an adult, you have the bad habits. So it's harder. The older you get, the more set in your ways. But remember, your habits is a vibration. Your body gets locked into a certain vibration, and it becomes very difficult to reverse that. But you can do it. What's the advantage of the adult? The advantage of the adult is you have the intellect. The advantage of the adult, you have the knowledge. The advantage of the adult, you have the experience. All of the things that children don't have. So there's always a positive and a negative. It doesn't matter how old you are. Anyone can resurrect. Anyone can raise himself. If you're an adult, the first key is to get down to your natural body weight. Okay, because it's the waste in the body. You have a physical body, spiritual body, physical body, spiritual body. It's very difficult to tap into the spiritual body when there's a lot of waste in the physical body. That's why the master said, clean yourself inside out, then outside in. Right? Inside out first, inside your body. Get the waste out of your body. Then outside in, outside in, outside. Do the spiritual rituals outside for inside development. Clean yourself inside and out. That's why he says it the way he says it. Right? So get down to your natural body weight, because then it's easy for the energy, the spirit energy, to move through the body. It doesn't, that waste in the blood, it obstructs the flow of the energy. Waste in the bloodstream obstructs the flow of the energy. And remember, your spirit moves through your blood. And within the spirit is the soul force. So if the spirit is in the blood, and within the spirit is the soul force. So in order to be able to develop yourself spiritually, you got to purify your blood. You have to burn the blood. You have to get the blood vibrating at a higher frequency. That's the difference between a professional athlete and an unskilled athlete. You take a professional, high-skilled NBA basketball player and you compare them to a low-skilled player, a guy who just plays in the street. The professional basketball player runs circles around the unskilled player, because the professional player's blood is moving at a higher rate. Their heart rate, their body's so conditioned to function, and their reaction times are so much more advanced than the undeveloped individual. Well, that's the difference between someone who's in shape versus someone who's out of shape. What does the master say? Exercise as if your life depended on it, because it does. These are the keys to your spiritual development. This is the right knowledge that the master teacher represents, that most people try to hide. Who has, they don't want people over, to get this, information out. They're afraid of the master. They're afraid of the master because the ego. They don't want to submit. So people write off the master, and they it's easy for them to jump on the negative, that case. Hold on. I hope you're hearing me. I might have I hope you can hear me. I don't know if I was disconnected, but I was talking about, and if there's any glitches, because I don't know, if there's any glitches in the sound or in my voice. Hopefully everything will work out well. I'll test this lecture before I even post it, but I want to make sure everything is clear. We covered a lot of information, a lot of data. Again, the whole focus is explaining the whole key of our cultural principles, why our cultural principles are so important, what our mission is, what the goal is, what the master's job is, right? What he represents. And as I was saying before, a lot of people who've come across the master teacher, they don't want this information out. A lot of it, because our people will give you all kinds of excuses why they don't want to give up living European culture. Listen, I've been dealing with us in this culture for 5 years. I'm well trained in dealing with all types of people, male and female, will make 1,000 excuses why they don't want to give up European culture. And so they conveniently just ignore what we're saying and teaching. And that's fine. That's for them. I go back, many are called, few are chosen. Our job is try to get the truth out. We can't force nobody to accept the truth. What do you say? You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink. Your job is to teach the truth. Your job, you can't force anyone to accept it. Your job is to develop yourself spiritually at the same time. Be the example you want others to acknowledge, right? We talked about this before. Be the example you want others to acknowledge, right? We say here, right here in this particular scroll, I read this last week and we'll read it again. This is coming from the maxims of Yanun, Pa Membabat M Yananan, the maxims of Yanun. And here the master teacher is talking about it. He says, this is on page 4. It says, the lock is our hearts. Excuse me. And the key is the doctrine. Thus, love and unity will free me. It is your task, your test. You must use the tools you have been given. Each one teach one. See, that's the key. Each one teach one. You have no excuse. And as the prophecy says, all Ayana eyes shall behold him. No one will be able to say they did not know, yet they took not the time to know. Refer to the Holy Tablets, chapter 6, tablet 17, called The Judgment, talks about this. It expired in the year 2000 with the Bible and the Quran. In this cycle of the hereafter, says the first 1,000 years of the hereafter, the cycle as we renew our stories. The first 1,000 years, right, from of this cycle, if you go back to the SMAT circle, when I said we're in the third density, we're moving into the fourth density, and but within 1,000 years from today, we'll be totally integrated into the fourth density. I've talked about this before. The only humans that will survive are those who are able to reintegrate into that, into the higher density as the planet moves through cycles. Remember, everything moves in cycles. Everything in nature moves in cycles. Your physical body moves in cycles. The planet Earth moves in cycles. The galaxy moves in cycles. Everything operates on cycles. Sleep cycle, wake cycle, sleep cycle, wake cycle. Your respiratory system is a cycle. Your breathing system is a cycle. Your circulatory system is a cycle. Cycles are everything. Plants have cycles. Trees have cycles. Animals have cycles. Mating cycles. It's everything is based on that. All of nature is based on that. We used to know that when we used to have our nature knowledge. That's what Wu-Sabat is, nature knowledge. Understanding the culture of nature. Understanding these cycles of nature. We used to know all of these things. Of course, we've been, thoroughly miseducated. The European practiced, ignorance, right? During slavery, it was illegal for us to learn anything, know anything, develop anything, because you can rule the ignorant is easily ruled by the knowledgeable, right? Knowledge rules ignorance. So if you can keep people in a state of ignorance, it's easier to take advantage of them. That's what all of these secret societies are about, to keep the secrets for themselves. That's how they're able to dominate and rule. So one had to come to restore. But again, as I said, many people choose not to accept the actual facts. You can't do anything about it. Your job is to try to teach. You're obligated to teach. They're not obligated to accept. You're just obligated to spread the truth. That's it. That's our job. That's what I'm doing. And everyone who listens to this is obligated the same thing. Hopefully you all will support. Now we understand the importance of the culture of Wu-Sabat. Please ask detailed questions. I can give better detailed answers to any questions. There's a lot of data. I've been talking about this data for quite some time. There is a lot of data that we put out on the last discussion and this discussion. There's a lot of information our people don't know about that they have to learn. One last thing I want to talk about, one of those principles, I bring it up. I've been addressing it a lot, is this ninth principle, the creative force. This is something that our people have a hard time comprehending. The master teacher has been trying to get us to comprehend this concept of the creative force that the religious people call God, or they say Allah, and it's not the same. It's nowhere near the same. Okay? Their concept of God and Allah are talking about supernatural beings. Today we call them extraterrestrials. We call them our ancestors, the Nathar. That's who they were talking about when they talk about the God or Yahweh or the Elohim. They're talking about supernatural beings. All these beings they come from more advanced societies. They come from star systems that are more advanced than our star system. Watch the darn TV show Star Trek. It's a good barometer of how the universe operates. There's a being on Star Trek called Q. He's like a Nathar. He's a god-like being. He's just more advanced than the regular people in Star Trek. And you see different levels of technology. Some planets have primitive to other planets. Other planets have more advanced, science and knowledge. So Star Trek is a really good barometer of trying to show people how the universe operates, the galaxy. Star Wars also is the same thing. This stuff is real. So I always tell our people, study the UFO phenomena. If you want to make sense of it, to understand the world you live in, just do the research. This is not about belief. It's about doing your research, doing your homework. Because what? Your soul is on the line. Do you want to become like a lot of your relatives and become a disembodied soul trapped in this realm? Or do you want to be able to be greeted by your ancestors who exist in the higher abodes? You have to develop yourself spiritually. You have to learn to call on them, to make prayers towards them, talking to your families. They do hear you. They're monitoring you. You can hear them. You just have to develop yourself to hear them. Make that spiritual connection. Make that link. And so that's why it's important to understand the difference. Because even when the master, and I like to point this out, when the master was teaching us this concepts back in the 70s and 80s, we were using Islamic terminology like this book right here he put out. Where we at? Page 13. Let's go page 1. This book, Why Allah Should Not Be Called God. Why Allah Should Not Be Called God. Now, he first published this in 1972, and he republished it in 74, republished again in 77, he republished in 79, and he republished in 78. That's the edition that we have here, 1980, excuse me, 1980, right? So he's been trying to explain this concept and all from the Islamic term Allah, and so he was trying to say it's not God, but our people, they associate Allah with Muslims and they lock it to their culture. So the master realized by the 90s that we can use no term that connects us to these foreign cultures because it confuses the mind. Because the master is trying to explain the concept of the creative force using Islam. So he says right here, if you go to page 13, he writes that most people don't understand. This is on page 10. This is page 10 of that book. He says, and this is 1980. This book came out in 1980. Think about how long ago that is. He says here, says that most people don't understand the fact that Allah is El Kulum or Kul, and it means the all, the sum of everything in the universes. Nothing can be added to, none, nor taken away from the all. You see that? So I'm just showing you how the master was explaining these concepts from the very beginning. But again, a lot of the students, couldn't comprehend it, the concepts, of the all. And I'm in the lecture, same thing. I'm going to play this lecture. He's explaining in this particular lecture the concept of the all, the creative force. This is very important for your spiritual development, to understand the concept of the creative force as opposed to these religious concepts that they put in our mind of God and Allah and Yahweh and Elohim that our people are calling on and not understanding the creative force itself. Let's see. Let me find that discussion before we close out. It's right here. What the name of the lecture he did? This was back in the 80s. What is a human being? I just had it up. Let me put it back. What is a human being? If I can find it real quick. I'm going to put this up. And he goes into the concept on the creative force. Because someone asked a question, he's answering the question, explaining that. Again, this is what makes the master teacher so unique. This is what makes our doctrine so important.
When you say create a state of nothing,
listen.
It's good that you understand that that's a thing. You follow? Right. Okay. Allah exists as He is. Amantu billahi kama huwa, as we say in Arabic. I have faith in Allah kama huwa, as He is, His state of existence. And here's what happens. If you blink your eye only once in every 100 years, okay? you would miss everybody that died between 1 and 100. Let me say that again. If you blinked your eye only once in every 100 years, you'd miss seeing anybody born between 1 and 100. That does not mean that they were not born. It means that you would not see them because you blinked. Then, if you blink once in every 50 years, you only see people who happen to be born after 50. If you blinked once and then kept your eye closed and 50 years later opened it up, you'd only see from 50 on, and 50 would become 1 to you. Why am I saying this? Because throughout the scriptures, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when He, the Almighty Heavenly Father, wants to bring something into existence, He merely says to it, kun, faya, kun. Be, and fear, it comes into existence. Like it says when He spoke of Mary and her immaculate conception. He merely said be, and she conceived. Okay? When He wanted to bring out the breath of life for man, He merely said be, and man exists. Now, where does Allah exist? Allah does not exist in a state of where. Because the word exist as a whole cannot be a where. A where is a place designated from another place to and fro. You understand? Allah is Al-Qulum, the all. You cannot take from Him and you cannot add to Him. You cannot take from Him because where would you get it from if He is the all? You cannot take from Him, where would you put it? Because He occupies all places and spaces and time. So, He thought of becoming, thus you became. He had to create the vacuum to place you in because you were to have a dense body as opposed to just a spiritual body. You follow? So what they really say is when He created nothingness is that the Almighty took energy and slowed up its modal vibrations to create matter. And at the spot where that first took place, the transformation, when you turn down your radio or your television to the point where it's no longer a low volume, but you can't hear it, not that it's not there. You just can't hear it. Like I mentioned earlier, a dog can hear a whistle that you can't hear. The whistle is there, you just can't hear it. So that is a sign that there are states of existence beyond human comprehension. Allah's starting point is the first stage of existence beyond human comprehension.
Now, if you heard that last point, Allah's starting point is the first stage of beyond human comprehension. That first stage beyond human comprehension would be the plane of force. Once you learn how to tap into the plane of force, you will be connecting with the creative force itself. Okay. In fact, that's how the master teacher gets his downloads from the creative force through that's how this doctrine is coming, comes through, the energies of creation into his consciousness. We all have the same abilities. He's explained that to us. That's why it's so important to understand this concept of the creative force versus this fictitious God or this fictitious law. That's why he wanted to stop using Allah, because it tied you with the Arabs and it tied you with their religion. So we went back to our African terminology. And from an African terminology in ancient Kemet, we said Pa'ut, which represented the creative force, nature itself, existence itself. And the goal through our spiritual development, this is how you expand your consciousness, by learning to tap into this energy source. So if you read the, let's see, he goes into that in Actual Facts number 18. He explains it pretty good. If we go to Actual Facts number 18, let's see here. Again, this is just another important principle that we teach. Actual Facts, this is Actual Facts number 18. Let me just show it to you so you can see. Actual Facts number 18. This is called Tones, Sound, DNA, Molecules, Vibrational Frequency. And we're going to go to page 9 where he gets into the topic. And he's talking about it. So we saw on page 9 and page 10, he says, so just as radio waves carry information provided by the sender, also the waves transferring energy transferring energy to you carry any and all kinds of information to information, which is you. You're receiving them at all times. It's just that you're on the wrong station or frequency and can't see or hear them speaking and incarnating for you. You're talking about your ancestors being connected to your ancestors spiritually. They're trying to communicate with us, but we're not developed spiritually, so we can't see them and can't hear them. That's why they had to send a master here, one who was in tune with these frequencies, who was teaching us, who are here to teach us how to communicate with them yourself. That's the goal, family. He says, so I repeat, you're receiving them at all times. It's just that you're on a wrong station or frequency and can't see or hear them speaking and incarnating for you. Like a radio or TV, it's off. If you're not in tune with your own station, broadcasting signals that you are built to receive, born to receive from your own ancestors. That is, if you accept others' cultures, religions, way of life, if you carry their names, titles, accept their ancestors' spirit forces, called deities, gods, prophets, messiahs, Mahdi's, and so on, when you speak in their tones, it's like the radio is not in tune on your own station. So you only receive their spirit forces who will not help you in any way. Yet they will use you to fail. You must be in tune with your own bloodline back to the ancients who vibrate as you on the same station, broadcasting to you for you. Why you see hands at the end of Atun Re, the sun disk. Anyone who knows this iconography, this was an ancient Kemet, and you have Akhenaten. You have an image of him, one of our ancestors, and his wife Nefertiti, and they have this image of the sun with the hands coming down, the rays coming down, which meant they were connected to those energies he's talking about. So let's go to next page. Oh, this was page 7, on page 8 now. Paragraph 35, he says, and of course, your own energy waves carry information into you as information that upon the thought and the universe and nature. These waves impart this Wunuwapu information genetically and psychologically into you. See that? This information is being sent through the universe. And once you're in your right frequency, you can tap in to this. Is what makes the doctrine, this is how you actually able to comprehend the doctrine. This is how I was able to comprehend the doctrine. That's why I've noticed so many students who come through this culture really don't understand this doctrine, why so many leave, because one, they're not doing the spiritual rituals. And that's what opens you up. It increases your energy and you allow you to harness this knowledge into you. That's how the master is doing it. Of course, he's at a much higher vibration than we are, but we have the ability to develop ourselves to tap into the same sources he's doing. And he's explaining how to do it. So I'm going to read that again. So he says, and of course, your own energy waves carry information into you as information that upon the thought and the universe and nature. These waves impart this Wunuwapu information genetically and psychologically into you. Paragraph 36. You must become balanced genetically, linked to your own genes, not other races, but with your own resonant frequency of your own Egyptian African ancestors, linked to the universe and beyond. And then and only then will you be able to understand the information you are receiving. You see that? This is how you understand the information. That's why a lot of people read our books and they can't comprehend it, because your body can't process the data. You have to increase the energy flow through the body. If you don't do that, then the books will just be a bunch of words. And that's why a lot of people pick up books, they try to read and they put it right back down because they don't comprehend it. They don't comprehend what's being said. They lack the reasonability. So reading the books and doing the rituals go hand in hand, because you have to increase the energy flow. The brain, your brain moves off of energy, electrical energy moving through the brain. If that energy is not flowing at a certain rate, it's hard to comprehend the data. Okay, I hope that makes sense. We put out a lot of information today. The goal was to do my best to explain the culture of Wu-Sabat, why we teach what we teach, why I teach the principles that I teach, that, I'm talking about where I'm getting this information from is straight from the books, the doctrine, and my goal is for you is to use this information as a guideline to help you better comprehend, these cultural principles. You keep reviewing these lectures, keep listening to it over and over like a commercial. Master the information in here, understand it so that you can begin to apply it. The first key, remember, is Ashak. Without Ashak, nothing else matters. I explained that to you before. Divine love is the key. It's divine love is what makes us want to do this work. Because you're not doing it for money. You're doing this because of divine love. That's the only reason to do it, because you want to change the conditions on the planet. We live on a planet that's ruled by, disagreeable forces. And so the only way to make the change is by you changing. So one of the principles we talk about is the true qualities, or the qualities of a true Sabian who represents Ma'at, right? The qualities of a true Sabian who represents Ma'at. That's the key. Ma'at. Our culture is centered around Ma'at. Quality number 1 is truth. You must be a seeker of the truth if you are a child of justice. Ma'at represents justice. Number 2, desire. You must have a burning desire to know the truth. Right? How are you going to know the truth if you don't have a desire for it? You got to be a seeker of the truth, family. Number 3, quality number 3 is willpower. Our willpower stops us from giving up our fight for justice, right? Because we live in a world of injustice. Only your willpower will keep you fighting. Quality number 4, consistency. Those who are consistent are guaranteed to obtain their goals. That's self-explanatory. Number 5, momentum. Consistency creates momentum that builds energy. See, that's how you build up energy, family, is through momentum, right? You can't get momentum if you're not consistent. Number 6, energy. Energy is required to move your body to achieve any goal, right? Life is energy. Life is energy. Without energy, you're not going to be effective. That's one of the drawbacks. As you get older, you lose energy. Once you understand spiritual work, you can restore that energy, family. You literally can restore your energy. You can alter your genetics. Read Actual Facts number 46, Intelligent Design, Divine Design, Plot of Aliens. The master makes that very clear. That's why he taught us the concept of morphic resonance. That's one of our principles. It's in that book. Does a great job of how to correct your genetics. If you're born with genetic defects, whatever your defects, it can be corrected. Or once you understand how to harness the energy using harmonic tones. That's why we chant in our prayers. We do prayers, we do chanting. All of that is learning to tap into these harmonic tones that govern the body. It's also how you open up portals. So energy is key. Number 7, focus. When focus is combined with energy, goals are easily realized. Number 8 is power. When the mind is focused, when the mind is focused and full of energy, you now have the power to achieve your goals. So this is how you get power, family. When your mind is focused and full of energy, you now have the power to achieve your goals. But energy is the key. What good is energy without focus? Once you're focused and you have the energy, that's what, now you got power. And the last principle is Leviathan. Leviathan. Once you understand the principle of Leviathan, you understand racism, white supremacy, right? The effects that the white man's been pushing that he's God to our people for the last 500 years. He's convinced us that he's God. This is what we have to destroy, that image, by replacing it with the truth. That's why in ancient Kemet, our ancestors built those huge monuments of our ancestors they were called deities. That's where the European got it from. That's why they copied that. Because they seen us. They seen these huge monuments of these Africans, you know, and these were the gods and goddesses. And so the Europeans are like, man, that's a powerful concept. So the Greeks and Romans copied it and said, you know what, we're going to turn ourselves into gods and have people worshiping us. And they've successfully done that within the last 500 years. And now, once they've done that, it took away our self-determination, right? Self-determination is the desire to rule yourself. We've lost that. Even in countries that we rule, that we do own, we're still following the European models. We don't want to rule based on our culture. Our original culture is the key, right? And we have to understand our genetic superiority. This is how you defeat Leviathan. Once we understand the power of melanin, we're going to do a discussion on melanin, family. Once we understand that's our superpower, as I said before, melanin is the vibranium that they were talking about in that movie, The Black Panther. If you haven't seen The Black Panther, go check it out. Do it as a research project. If you haven't seen it, think of it as a research project. You know, African nation society has this superpower called the vibranium. It's a special mineral that gives them the ability to build an advanced society. Well, that special mineral that we have in real life is our melanin. No one has the quality of melanin as the African, the Nagato people. We have the highest quality of melanin on earth. And our woolly hair is a symbol of that quality of melanin in the brain. Because our brain, we have neuromelanin, the quality of our melanin is far superior than anyone else. That's why our hair curls the way it curls, called woolly hair. There's a science to that. The Europeans know it, but they won't teach it. They know it, but they will not teach it. And I told you guys before, you had black scholars who have exposed this, who put this information out. As I said before, they don't understand the spiritual ramifications of melanin, but they do understand the physiological aspects of it, and they have some spiritual knowledge of it. You know, they do have some, because Dr. Layla Africa have talked about, you know, the spiritual essence of melanin, you know. And there was another brother by Dr. Carol Barnes, and if I can just pull him up real quick, because you know, it is good for you family to have some knowledge of this, but I want to do a dedicated discussion just on this topic of melanin and the science of it. You know, we're going to really get into the science of it. But the brother that's really important is this brother, Dr. Carol Barnes, because I said to you last week, he's a chemist. This was back in the 80s. I don't even know if he's still alive, but you know, he did a lecture back in the 80s explaining this, that he was studying the melanin molecule and the importance, and he wrote a book on it. And if I can find you the clip to it, you know, then you'll have a good reference for it. You know, I do talk about Layla Africa. He's pretty known. A lot of people know Dr. Layla Africa. You can look him up easily, but people will not be familiar with Dr. Carol Barnes. You know,
scientists tell us
and
that human beings are functional.
This is him. This is Dr. Carol Barnes. He's a chemist.
Stages
and
human development.
You
well,
know,
look at this thing
and
from,
he wrote a book.
The known things, being so diverse.
Melanin, the chemical key to life.
Skin may have a melanin that's made up of all.
but he breaks down the science. You can actually look it up. Just go on YouTube. It's on YouTube. Dr. Carol Barnes, Melanin, the chemical key to Black greatness. That's the name of the lecture. Research him, study melanin, because the key is you have to understand our melanin is toxic. It's become toxified. What they don't know is when our melanin is purified, we actually will turn back to green. Our ancestors used to be green, okay, not brown the way we look today. When our melanin is purified, we're green in color. So that lets you know how toxified our melanin has become. Because the pure melanin is when you see the green trees, the grass, the green, that's pure melanin and all. But what toxify, he tells you what toxify our melanin is the drugs they feed us and sugar and salt. It toxifies the melanin toxifies it, messes it up. As well as we have a lot of iron in our blood that messes the melanin up. Once you learn how to purify it, then it'd be like you're superhumans again. We'll be on a whole nother level. Trust me, family. Okay, so that's a lot of information. Hopefully that will help guide and use this information as best you can. We have a lot more data. I told you before, I'm going away. I'll be away for a while, but we'll be back. If not the end of June, hopefully the end of June is I'll be able to put some more information up on our next discussion. We're going to do it like a good series on the Bible. We're going to get into this, getting into the Bible. We're going to tackle that is one of the next things we're going to do. Hold on. To give more clarity to people on the Bible. But with that being said, family, we love you all. Much blessings, much strength. Stay strong. And why do?
ناويين اننا راجعين يا بلادي ومش الحوش الكبير والرملة دار السقيا في العصرية